Hey there everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Talia, and today I will be talking to you guys about my C-section story. So it definitely was unplanned. This is not really what my birthing plan was, but things change as we'll discuss in the video. And yeah, so I just want to discuss what happened during that and let you guys know. I'm making this video for a couple reasons. One, for personal records that I can remember this. Two, just to inform everyone out there who's interested in how a C-section goes. This video will be a kind of chit chat, sit down, talk with me kind of vibe, as if I'm a friend speaking to you about my experience, or you know, a sister telling you about what happened. I do have my notes on the side here, so ignore me looking over here every now and then. I've still been sipping on the cup that they gave me in the hospital. This is like my little souvenir cup. I also have a small window to do this because I just put baby girl down and I have other things to do. So I'm gonna try and get this done really quick. Alright, so as I stated before, I initially wanted to have a natural birth. That was the plan. I was already looking at videos and talking to other friends about that whole experience. And it's funny because the night before, excuse me, because the night before I went to my 37-week appointment, I was already looking at the labor and delivery videos and trying to get my mind and my, you know, just get prepared for what that will look like, hours of labor and what it's gonna feel like. So I was already watching those videos and preparing myself, and come to find it, I wasn't able to do a natural birth. Everything was looking good up to my 37th week, a 37-week appointment. The doctor said that my baby girl, her name is Maya, she was measuring about a week ahead, and so they wanted to check in on her and make sure that everything was looking good, and that she was in the right position for me to deliver. So we scheduled the appointment for the 38th week, and she was breech. And not like a little breech, it was extremely breech. So she was literally sitting up here, her head was here, feet headed down here, which makes a lot of sense because I didn't really see her drop. I felt like she was still sitting high. To me, like, this is my first pregnancy, and I felt like she was still sitting extremely high, and I wasn't like feeling any of the extra pressure down there and what I've been reading online and stuff like that. So I was like, what's going on? You know, like, what's going on? And so yeah, come to find it, she was breech all the way up here and just hanging out with me, right? We also found out that she was going to be a bigger baby, more on the high 7s, low 8 scale when she would be born. And so after I got the ultrasound, I had to talk to the doctor about what to do next. So I discussed with the doctors, and he gave me two choices. Pretty much I can do the ECV. I'm not sure of the actual medical terminology, but it's the ECV, and or I can get a C-section. So I wasn't expecting any of this to happen, and so the doctor definitely told me that I had time to think about what I wanted to do next, and that I had to call him the following day, to make sure that we either make the appointment for the ECV or the C-section. Off rip, the ECV just didn't seem like it would be good for me because, one, they said that it would possibly induce labor and possibly be able to deliver vaginally, but they also, the chances of a success rate was lower because I was already so far in the pregnancy. I was 38 weeks, and she had the chance of pretty much going back to the original breech position that she was in. And so I was like, ow, no, like, that just sounds terrible. And then, like, there's too much going on. Like, I just feel like, what if there's more complications as we're trying to turn her around? And I just, yeah, so with the success rate of being 50% and lower, declining, you know, it just didn't sound right. And plus, my husband wasn't really interested in that either. So we decided on the C-section. So I wasn't really that informed about the C-section and how that really goes, just because I wasn't expecting that to happen for me, and I didn't really want it. But, you know, things just don't go your way. After I decided on the C-section, immediately I started doing research. I went on YouTube, I went on Google, I went on all the sites, right? Just to see what it would be like. And I was just trying to prepare myself mentally and kind of get a visual of what I'd have to go through. I also talked to a couple of friends, and my little sister, she also had a C-section, so I was able to get their personal experience as well. And they all had great things to say about it. They didn't really have any complications or anything like that, and so it just made me feel a little more confident and prepared for what I was about to get into. With that, I started looking on the brighter side. You know, I was like, okay, at least I don't have to wait until, you know, I go into labor, and, you know, I don't have to anticipate maybe it'll happen at 3 o'clock, maybe it'll happen at, you know, midnight or something like that. We were kind of able to just choose when she would be here. the doctor told me that if we went with the ECV, it would have to be the following day. And then if I chose the C-section, then I'd be able to choose pretty much any day in the 39th week is when they would want to do the procedure. I thought it was like kind of cool that we could choose her birthday and like, you know, kind of choose the date and time really. So we took advantage of that and we chose the date May 24th, 2024. Like that's kind of cute, right? I was also happy to know that I can just take my time in packing my hospital bag, which I will do another video on that as well. But I had time to prepare for the hospital visit. I did have to change some things because I was having a C-section rather than the vaginal. So I did change some things that were going in my hospital bag, but I was able to take my time with that, prepare, and just mentally get ready for what was going to be happening. As I started researching and looking more into the C-section, I was just kind of, you know, I was looking at the brighter side in that I didn't have to go through hours and hours of labor and, you know, the whole delivery process. On my 39th week, I went in 2 days before my procedure to get like, you know, the pre-operational paperwork done. So that was just like taking my blood work and just signing some consent forms and all that good stuff to do the surgery, right? And then on Friday, 2 days later, I was scheduled to be there at 9. You have to show up 2 hours before just so that they can prep you and everything can be prepared before going to the operating room. So the nurses were super nice the entire time. They were super comforting and they were explaining everything to me, which was great because, you know, there's just so many moving parts and so many things going on. And it's just like, it's comforting to know what's going on. And especially when they broke everything down and was explaining to me and saying, oh, this is medicine for this and I'm going to be doing this. And this is, you know, so we get there and we get taken to, I'm saying we, it's me and my husband. I was allowed to take one person in the operating room. As I was just chilling in the triage area, I was connected to like a little machine that would keep track of baby girl's heart rate and I had to also take like some pills, a little medicine before being taken back. Also, I had to get an IV. The IV for the first time ever was just, I hate needles, like, period. And this sucked because it's like something in your skin the entire time. So I'm like, you know, like, ugh. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible because I knew that the spinal tap was coming next. So I was like, this is like the easier part of this whole process. So I kind of just looked away the entire time. I wasn't really trying to look at the tools and like the actual IV, just because that would just freak me out more. So they put it right here. So it was like, let me see if I still have oh yeah. They put it right here. And, you know, they tape it down and everything, which I'm super happy about because I seen another video and the lady had it in her hand. So I'm like, the veins are so small, like, ow, right? So anyway, they do this and I was like, it wasn't as bad. I was just psyching myself out, honestly, but still, I just don't like needles. But yeah, so they had the IV in, they had my little fluids going and stuff like that, which they changed throughout my entire time. All right, so then me and Babe are just hanging out in the area for a couple of hours, just waiting for my room to be prepared for the C-section. And so, you know, the nurses would come in frequently just to check in on me. So then it was go time. So they, you know, push me. How do I say that? So they roll me on down to the hallway. Babe is with us too. And they take us into the operating area. And so Babe goes into this room where he has to not scrub in, but, you know, put on the hat and the stuff that they need for him to go into the room with us. And I was taken back to go get the spinal tap. Of course, they wouldn't want him to see that part because, child, I was making some noises that I've never heard myself make when I was getting the spinal tap. We'll get to that. So I enter this room and it's like freezing cold, maybe not freezing, but it was extremely cold. And I was just like extremely nervous, but I was trying to keep it together because I didn't want to psych myself out, right? When I came in, the nurses were super nice. There was maybe like 5 people in there, maybe like 5 nurses in there. They were all super nice, trying to spark conversation and kind of get my mind off of things. And I knew this was going to be terrible. Well, not terrible. I knew it was going to be a struggle because there was a nurse like standing like right in front of me, and she was like comforting me and trying to make conversation and be a distraction to the whole thing that's going on in my back. And so She was super nice, you know, just asking me things. Oh, how did you and your husband meet? And she's all that good stuff, right? And they also allowed me to choose my own Pandora station. They're like, you want to listen to some music? And I was like, yeah, I guess. So then I asked if they can put on Sade, who I love so much. And so yeah, they put her music channel on, which was super calming. It was nice. They got my mind off of things for a moment, but the spinal tap was still occurring. So let me tell you. So they have you on the operating table and they lift you up, kind of just how I'm sitting right here, and they call in the anesthesiologist. I hope I'm saying that right. Anesthesiologist, you know what I mean? The person who administers the spinal tap is behind me, and the nurse is standing like right in front of me, like holding my hands and like, just breathe, and I'm like, ah, girl, like I'm not like listening to, well, I am listening to her, but like I can't because I'm like freaking out because there's a needle that's about to go into my back. And so I'm freaking out. But for the procedure, I wasn't really trying to look at the tools and the things, you know, necessary to get this part done. I just wasn't trying to look at that, especially because the night prior, my husband and I watched a video on the entire process. So I saw the type of needle that goes back there, and I saw, like, you know, the actual, like, you know, them cutting and slicing and dicing and all that stuff. I'm actually going to post that video, or I'm going to link it below if you want to see that. But that helped me out a lot because it gave me like a visual representation of, or a visual explanation as to what is going to be happening. And so, yeah, I was kind of like thinking about that, but I was trying not to. Get this. So they tell you to look down, put your chin on your chest, and poke your back or your spine out as far as possible. And you have to sit there, which doesn't that already, that's just uncomfortable. You got your big belly and everything, and it's just like, like, you know. So we get going, and I'm just trying to keep my mind focused on not moving because I hear that there's terrible repercussions if you, like, you know, put it in the wrong spot or something like that. So I was definitely trying to avoid that, but it's also a needle going in your back, so I'm freaking out. Anyway, so I had to get, so they inserted the needle and they put just a tiny bit of the medicine in, and just off of that I was like, it was terrible. But it gets worse. They had to stop because the doctor who was going to be performing the C-section was busy with another mother, and, you know, obviously they don't want to get the medicine started and waste time. So I was freaking out, and I was like, oh my gosh, we have to do this again, like. But luckily they didn't put like a lot in. They just, you know, kind of did the initial. They just put a little bit in at the moment. So I was able to still sit up, and I was just like freaking out because I'm like, dang, like I have to get this again. Like I have to get it all over again. So yeah, I'm freaking out. The nurses are still talking to me. We're just trying to, like, you know, kill time. And so 5 minutes later, they're like, all right, we're good to go. Let's get it going or whatever. I'm like, so we get prepared again, and this time everything went well. They put it in. Not gonna lie, it hurt. Like what I felt like is that they put the needle in, and then they had to inject like 3 different tubes is what it felt like. But by that third one, you know, that's when I started feeling warm and like the tingly and all that stuff like that. The warm and tingly sensation that, you know, they say you start feeling. So I was like, thank God. Like that was that. I was happy because I knew that was going to be like the worst part. Right. So I was like, okay, I'll take this over, you know, 16, 17, 24 hours of labor and vaginal delivery, you know. And so, yeah, things were great after that. All I did was they just started to lay me down, you know, on the operating table. Yeah, it was just go time. So they laid me down, and my next thing was to make sure that I was completely couldn't feel anything before they started, you know, operating on me. And so the nurse who was up here, by this time, after they did the spinal tap, Babe was allowed to come back in. He was all scrubbed down, which was so cute. And I was like, Babe, like, I'm sure that was a shocker for him to see me like that too. And so, but as soon as he came in, I was like, oh, thank God, like, you know, my little comfort support. By the way, they have like some kind of, how do I explain? Some kind of covering that covers you from here and up. So he wasn't able to see anything, and my husband was sitting on this side of me. Oh, so the nurse the nurse has a needle and she's like, all right, so tell me when you feel this. She started poking me here. She's like, tell me when you feel this, you know, down in your lower area. So I'm like, okay. So she taps here, then goes here, here, here. And as soon as I felt anything, and I mean anything, I was like, okay, yep, I feel it, I feel it. And so she's like, okay, great. So she does that a couple times until the anesthetic was working up to where it was supposed to go. So afterwards I was like, thank God, because another one of my biggest fears was, what if, like, for whatever reason the medicine doesn't work on me and I start feeling things like, ow, like, that's terrible, right? But obviously that didn't happen. As soon as we were in the clear, which was maybe like 15 minutes later, the doctor was like, all right, we're going in. So there was a light, right? A huge light that was above me, and there was like a reflection on it. It was kind of like a mirror, so I can like see what's going on. I was trying to avoid that mirror at all costs, just because like I don't want to see my insides while I'm being dug into. Maybe if it was like videotaped and then I can watch it back later, okay, I'll do that. But like not in the moment. Like that's just But yeah, the procedure went super fast. I can't really tell you what's going on there because all I was doing was looking at my man. I was like, babe, like, oh my gosh, like, this hurts. Well, it didn't hurt, but I was just like, this is kind of weird, you know? And you definitely feel tugging. You feel like you're literally being, like, just pulled on. Like, it's very weird. It felt weird, but not painful. Pressure is what they always say. You feel pressure, but no pain, which was wonderful. But you just feel like an animal like on the operating table. Anyway, so fast forward, baby girl comes out and they show me her over the tarp or over the covering, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, yay. But you know, I'm drugged up, so it's like I feel like I feel like I wasn't all the way there, and so I was just like, oh my gosh, the only thing I can do is sit there and cry, of course. And so they ended up taking baby girl back to go get weighed, measured, and all that good stuff. And my husband was able to go with him, gets to go with them to have that part done. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And so during that time, they started sewing me back up. And the doctor let me know that the type of stitches I would have would be on the inside. They are like, I don't think they were stitches. I think he was saying they were staples that dissolve on the inside of me. Either way, he said there was no stitches or anything that I would have to take off on the outside. Everything would be on the inside and dissolve on its own. So I was like, all right, cool, that's nice. Medicine is crazy. Anyway, so as they were sewing me up, I started getting the shivers, and like I already heard about how this happens with some women and stuff like that, but I like didn't even notice it until I was like, wait, I'm like shaking like this all my whole, like, at least my upper body. I couldn't really move my lower body obviously, but I was just like shaking, like shouting my teeth, like, and the nurse was like, if you bite your tongue, like it'll help a little bit. So I did that, but it only lasted for a couple seconds because I was just like uncontrollably shaking, and I was just like, ah. So that sucked. But that's literally just what happens to the body when you're being dug into like that. So I was just like, oh, anyway. So after they finish sewing me up, I get taken to the post-operation area where I stayed for hours because I actually had some complications with some bleeding and blood clotting. So me, babe, and Maya come to the post-op room where I had to be monitored. Usually it's for like an hour, but I had to stay there for like maybe 4 or 5 hours because I had like a lot more blood loss and clots than usual. So they had to insert something called a JADE. I don't know what it stands for. I just remember them calling it a JADE. And so it's basically, from what I remember, it's basically some kind of thing that they insert through your vagina, and it's supposed to help shrink your uterus. So it's like a kind of like a vacuum, and it'll shrink down your uterus so that it'll stop like the blood and the clots that are going on. I don't know. This is Luna, by the way. Ain't she so cute? Ain't she so cute? She's literally a baby. Anyway, so I'm super glad that they did the JADE because they did it on kind of like not a whim, but they they decided it would be best just because I was already under the medication, and they were just like, yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and nip this in the bud before it gets worse, right? And so I'm super grateful and happy that they did that, because what if I was like bleeding hours on end and then I'd have to go back and get the procedure done? Like, that would have just been painful. So I'm super glad that they acted fast and was able to do that for me, because that helped out a lot. And like, you know, they were just checking on me every now and then. And once things started cooling down and everything was looking like it should, I was able to move to a labor and delivery room, excuse me, until my actual postpartum room was ready and set. In the post-op room, by this time, I was still freezing. Like, I'm just really like freezing. So they had like 3-4 blankets on me, and then I was still cold. So they brought in this machine. It was like a heating machine that would heat up the blankets that were on me, right? So that helped out a lot. And so a couple hours later, my body temperature, you know, started regulating, and I was like feeling better. But I just remember it being so cold, and I was just like shivering, and I was just like, ugh. Well, at this time also, baby girl had to get her shots. She had to get these shots, and I just felt so terrible. I literally cried with her when I heard her cry, because it's like, I know I hate shots, so it's like, you know, it was just terrible. But it wasn't bad. It's like when she got pricked, then she was crying, but she like stopped immediately afterwards. So I was just like, baby girl. Anyway, so I was monitored for about 4 to 5 hours, and then I was able to leave, go to the labor and delivery room to hang out until my room was completed, or my room was ready. And this was great because I was finally able to see family. They were able to come up and spend time with us and meet Maya. It was so sweet. It was wonderful, and it was great to have family around, and I was just so happy to see everybody with, you know, our new bundle of joy. It was just absolutely amazing. So by 9 p.m. that night, I was able to start walking around. They encourage you to start walking around as soon as possible, just because it'll help you with recovery. And I was super eager to just start moving again, just because I don't want to just be laying in the bed and feeling like a little couch potato, even though I just went through abdominal surgery. So yeah, everything was looking good. The blood was decreasing over time, which made me feel super confident about my recovery. But during your time during postpartum, you're gonna learn how to start breastfeeding, and you start learning the cues and everything, and you're just attending to her. But it was great at this time because, you know, we still had family with us, and I also had my husband there to support me. So it was great. It was a great bonding time. All right, so as I'm editing this, I completely forgot I'm also breastfeeding right now, so she's a multitasking queen. The catheter. They had to take out the catheter Friday night at like, I don't know, 10 p.m. So hours after the medication wore off, and I was like scared, because this is the only time that like I was gonna like feel some kind of pain or like something after the medicine had wore off. Well, so they put it in to you right before they start the actual operation, you know, the C-section operation, but they have to take it out once the medicine wears off. So I was freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, like, that's terrible, right? But it actually wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. The worst part was actually them taking off the piece of tape that's connected to your thigh that, you know, holds the catheter. So I was like, completely dreading the catheter coming out, because it's like literally in your urethra, like, ow, what the heck? But it actually wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible. The nurse counted, you know, down. I asked her, I was like, is this gonna hurt? She was like, it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna be different. I was like, okay, just go. So she was like, you know, telling me to count down and then breathe when it comes out. And I was just like, all right. So, you know, it's like 1, 2, 3, and it came on out. And it just felt weird. It felt like spicy. It felt like, I can't even describe it. It just didn't feel nice, but it wasn't painful. It wasn't terrible. So then the next goal was for me to use the restroom on my own. And so I was dreading that as well, because I thought it was like gonna sting or like feel like acid is coming out of my pee hole, but it wasn't. It felt completely normal. I just was like taking my time when I went to the restroom. Like, when I finally did have to pee, I just took my time. I did it slow, and I was literally holding onto the rail because I was anticipating, it to sting or feel terrible, but it really didn't. It did. It was just uncomfortable, really. All right, I'm out. So I stayed until Sunday, which was only like 2 days later, just because I was low-key getting bored and I wanted to get home already and just get into our own routine at the house. I had already had everything set up with her nursery, and I just wanted to get back into my space, By 3 p.m., I was trying to get out of there, which was great because all the doctors cleared me and Maya. They said everything was looking good, and so I only showered one time when I was there just because the shower was kind of small and kind of uncomfortable. I wasn't really trying to do that, so I showered on Saturday just to make me feel good, but I would get up and try to move around just to get myself moving. And yeah, which is also a part of the reason why I was getting bored. So by the time it was checkout, they asked me if I wanted to be rolled out on the wheelchair or if I wanted to walk out. And I'm petty because I told them I wanted to have a full experience. So I wanted to be rolled out, even though I could have just walked out and would have been perfectly fine. But I was like, let's go for the ride, So the next nerve-wracking part was getting baby girl into the car seat, which we didn't know how to do. I'm so glad that the nurse was there to help us out, which they have to clear your car seat and make sure that you have a car seat in order to take off with the baby, right? So I'm super glad that she was there to help, but the entire ride home was terrible because she's just so small and you're on the road and you just don't want to... The rest of the day was wonderful though, because I was able to go home with my family and just enjoy baby girl. When we did finally get to the house, I felt so much better. Not saying that there was anything wrong with the hospital or anything like that. I just was ready to get home and get into my space and get into our routine, So that was my experience with the C-section. I hope I didn't leave out any details. Let me see. I hope I didn't leave out any details. The entire experience was kind of quick. It was kind of quick. I definitely could have stayed, up to 4 days, but like I said, I was trying to get out of there as soon as possible. But everything was great. The nurses, the staff, the doctors were great, and I have no complaints at all. I might do another C-section down the line, but I do want to have the experience of a natural birth. So we'll see down the line, but if you guys have any questions, let me know. I will be responding to anything that I can. Yeah, I really hope I'm not missing anything. That was pretty much the gist of my C-section story, my unplanned C-section story. It was super quick, and I'm grateful that I had it because I was able to kind of plan for it. That's all I have for today. If you want to see future videos about my experience with my firstborn, stay tuned and subscribe.